Hello, everyone, and then to all our DHS Old Boys. Today I've got the honor and privilege of talking to DHS Old Boy Roger Horrocks, cinematographer as is currently profession, and Headboy of DHS in 1986. Roger, welcome.
Thanks very much. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's great. Let's start off a little bit about your days at DHS and obviously having the honor and the privilege of being head boy of DHS. Just tell us about your early days at school and your memories.
Well, I just have such good memories. I don't think I've ever been as productive in my life as I was when I was at DHS. When I think back to the things we were involved in, the academics, athletics, the drama, the choir, it was just an incredible time of just developing as a young person, and great friends, phenomenal memories. So I have really good memories of DHS.
Oh no, and you'll be happy to know that obviously the drama and the culture and the music is very much prevalent at DHS at the moment with the new Chris Seabrook Theatre, which has been upgraded, and the music department. So just one thing, your main sport at DHS, if I can remember, you were a really good athlete. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was really the main sport. I ended up just trying to think. I actually got a scholarship after university to go to Texas A&M for a year. Unfortunately, got quite a bad Achilles injury and sort of literally had to retire from athletics because then we couldn't go to Olympics. Yeah. So that was really the goal, was to try and qualify for Olympics, but unfortunately, we couldn't go then. So, but that was very much my sport, and then that kind of transitioned into spearfishing. So when I couldn't run anymore, I started spearfishing competitively.
Okay, I was gonna get on to how it all started, because when you left school, you did an honours degree at the University of KZN, and then you furthered your studies at the UCT Graduate School of Business. You did mention earlier, how did you get involved in cinematography? Where did how did you get onto that path?
Well, I think obviously when we were at school in '86, cinematography certainly wasn't an option. And in fact, if I remember, if you wanted to study art, you had to go down to like the E class or something. They didn't offer it. So there was clearly a different kind of set of priorities in those days. But I think really what happened was I was going to become an attorney. That was really my goal. So I went to Natal University, did law and philosophy. Was really always interested in ideas, and ended up getting into digital. So from about, I remember at university, the internet first came out and we first started using it. That was around about 94, 95. It started to emerge. So I got very involved, became a multimedia lecturer, and then moved into actual digital production. Came down to Cape Town in 2000, or actually 97, and became part of Ogilvy Interactive, which was the, Ogilvy and Mather's big advertising agency. So I worked with two guys from Durban, Duncan Forrest and Dave Bernstein, and we basically built Ogilvy Interactive. So I was very involved in the sort of digital frontier, as it were. Then ended up at Old Mutual, building online trading platforms. And I think it was around about that time I was doing my executive MBA at UCT, and I kind of just had this this moment of realization that I didn't want to be in a corporate world. The MBA teaches you to manage complexity, and I just decided, actually, you know what? I'd rather make my life simple, than manage all this complexity. And that just triggered a whole journey so I kind of knew what I didn't want to do. And, through that, and because of my spearfishing background and all those contacts I had in that industry, I ended up getting work on a BBC shoot in 2007 called The Great Tide, which was a BBC, David Attenborough series. And that's where it all started, because the cinematography profession is an apprenticeship model. So what you do is you start at the bottom, you work and you learn and you work your way up. So in a nutshell, that's kind of the the path. It wasn't like super intentional, but what's really been wonderful is that it brings together all the things I'm passionate about, you know, ideas, being in nature, the physicality of diving, and storytelling. So I've just been very fortunate to have all those things come together. And of course, all the digital background, because a lot of the cameras now are digital, everything's digital.
Yeah, no, so I'm assuming, just off the subject a bit, I'm assuming while you obviously were at UCT doing your MBA, working for Old Mutual, you still did a lot of diving and because obviously for the work that you do, you've got to be a really experienced diver.
Yeah, I think I did. I mean, obviously, I've always freedived. So initially with the spearfishing, you know, that was back when I was competing for Natal and going to nationals. You know, you're not allowed to spearfish with a scuba tank. So that's all done with freediving. But it was, to be honest, and I continued the freediving right through. But when I was at Old Mutual, I got very into adventure racing, a lot of cycling, a lot of, you know, sports that are just easier to train for when you're in a kind of a corporate space. You know, going spearfishing is a bit trickier. But it was only really when I started seriously, decided, right, this is what I wanted to do. There were two things. And the one was, you know, I could freedive really well, but the one was, you know, getting all my scuba qualifications up to the requisite level. And then the other was the rebreather, which is a kind of specialized diving device that you use, which recycles your air. And it just enables you to stay down longer and there's no bubbles. So I knew immediately that was something I needed to do. Borrowed money, bought a rebreather and trained up on that and really got my kind of technical diving skills right up to the requisite level.
Oh, yeah, that's really interesting. As I said, you know, when I chatted to you sort of off air for the recording, you know, very interesting for me is to learn and about what Old Boys have done. As I said, you know, with what we're going to get onto a little bit later.
Sure.
It really interested to see paths guys have done, and yours in particular is really interesting. In a recent interview that I was watching the other day, you mentioned there are two types of cinematographers. There's a benthic one and a blue water. Just to explain very briefly the difference and the one and what sort of one you've gone into, or one you sort of specialized in.
Well, it's specific to underwater cinematography in the natural history world. So there's really two different types of shooting, and you know, I started off with what we call blue water filming, which is really things like bait balls, whales, dolphins. It's any kind of behavior where the animals are fast moving, and you're filming in the water column. Okay, so that was kind of what I started off with. Because of the free diving and the spearfishing background, you know, I was able to move very fast and well underwater in position. So that was generally in the beginning what I was employed for. And then you make the transition as well to doing what we call benthic work, which is much more like shooting on land, in the sense that you'll actually use a tripod, an underwater tripod. You're often on rebreathers, you often have comms, you can talk to each other. And it's often a lot more stationary. So at the moment, for example, I'm working on a sequence on a little tuberculate cuttlefish that is literally that big. You know, so to be able to film that, you need tripods, you need special lenses, and you generally don't cover. I mean, you could spend literally the whole day and 3 weeks in an area the size of a swimming pool just filming these little creatures. So those are the two different styles, and increasingly, you know, I'm developing my skills obviously in both. So I started with the blue water, and now I'm also developing my competency in the benthic space.
Okay, so yeah, so it's interesting that you're doing both. Just on that, you brought up what work you're currently doing at the moment, and you mentioned in that interview that your work requires a lot of that old adage of being at the right place at the right time. Am I correct in saying it?
Yeah, very much so. I think the general time, we generally get given about, you need at least 21 days in the field, ideally 20 days at sea, for example. So like Sardine Run is a classic example of a shoot off the Natal of Port St. John's, where I've just done one recently. We were there for 20 days. We were at sea literally 10 hours a day. And we had significant bait balls on 2 days. So you need to put the time in. And the other thing, of course, is you need to be super, super ready. So you never, ever know when that thing's actually gonna fire or not gonna fire. So I kind of describe it sometimes as like it's like a lot of it's like 90% meditation and then 10% action, because you're putting a lot of energy just to being there for when it kicks off.
Yeah, basically you've got a lot of patience and you've got to be alert to when that time does come, I assume.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's very much it. And, the more experience you have, the more you realize it can happen at any time. You never, ever give up. You never walk away unless it's too dark or it's too this or it's too that or whatever. So, yeah, just a lot of like patience and grit.
Rog, over the last couple of years, you've done a lot of projects with National Geographic. You mentioned in that clip I was watching about some footage or filming you did of some dolphins for Walt Disney Films. Blue Planet 2, which is something that as well, which is done by our well-renowned Sir David Attenborough, and obviously quite a bit of work with Netflix, which we'll get to now. During in that period of time, which would you say were your highlights and moments that you and work that you've done that you're really proud of?
It's always quite a tough question on some levels, but I would say that certainly the work that I did with my friend Craig Foster on Blue Planet 2, which was the armoring octopus. Very proud of that. That was a difficult shoot that took us a long time, and we actually spent 2 years kind of trying to work that all out. And I know we're going to get onto that later, but out of that work came a lot of the foundation for the film My Octopus Teacher, which is doing just so incredibly well at the moment. But certainly, from my perspective, was that. Also, I worked on Our Planet for Netflix, and there were a number of sequences there, the mobile arrays in Costa Rica, and then also quite significantly the whale aggregation that I filmed off Hout Bay, which was featured in that episode, and as well as being featured in David Attenborough's just bringing out it's just come out now. It's a feature film, David Attenborough, A Life on Our Planet. And they used quite a lot of that whale footage in there as well, because it's such a wonderful symbol of the resurgence of nature. If you do protect nature, it does come back. So I think, those are probably the highlights. And then there's, some National Geographic Into the Okavango, where I shot some crocodiles underwater that they used and elephants that they used very beautifully. But I'd say that those are the highlights.
Oh, no, I mean, I was going to ask you, obviously, but you did touch on it about Okavango, is a lot of your work that you do for let's say National Geographic and the BBC, is that all local work done off our coastline or in our country, or do you travel and do quite a lot of work overseas? And obviously during this period, it's probably been a bit tough.
In South Africa and Botswana.
Sorry, I just might have lost
breaking up there a bit.
Yeah.
Let me just check that. A lot of it, it's basically all international. So some years I try and limit my time away from home to 150 days. And in any one year, it's actually quite rare to have a shoot in South Africa. I might have 1 or 2, but generally the bulk of them are all over. So places like Antarctica, all seven seas. So it's very much a global, the team will send you wherever you need to go, around the world. But yeah, I guess increasingly we're trying to, look at carbon offsets and things like that. So I've really enjoyed this year I've just worked in South Africa, and it's been fantastic because I just drive everywhere. I'm not flying and, going through that whole process. But the reality of the job is yeah, you need, you know, if they need you in Siberia, then they'll send you to Siberia.
Okay, just quickly before we get onto the Octopus Teacher, which, as we said, is all the rage at the moment. Are you self-employed, or do you do work for people, for companies, or you self-employed and you get like the BBC or National Geographic will contact you and say, right, I need you to do work? So do you freelance mainly?
Yeah, completely freelance. I don't know if you know where the word freelance comes from.
No.
It's actually quite cool. Apparently it comes from the medieval times when you could employ someone to fight on your behalf. So they were, you know, they used to fight with lances. So they used to employ someone to fight on your behalf, and it was a freelancer.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite a dangerous profession.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm completely freelance. I sometimes sometimes can sign like a contract for so many days over say a 2-year period or a year period, but no, you're completely self-employed.
Right, which brings us on to what everyone is talking about nowadays is the Netflix documentary series, My Octopus Teacher, and
Yeah.
it obviously we you know, for those who have watched it, it's about a diver, Craig Foster, who dives in the Great African Sea Forest, comes across this bundle of shells, and underneath that is an octopus. And he obviously he dives and he follows it and he befriends it, and it's a most amazing story. Please tell us your involvement in the production.
Okay, so Craig and I worked together. We first met in 2005 when I just left corporate, and he and his brother Damon Foster at that stage were very established filmmakers. They made a film called, and I recommend all of you, if you can get a copy, called The Great Dance, or was it The Great? I think it's The Great Dance, or The Great Dance, where they documented the Bushmen tracking and running down animals to hunt. So, you know, Craig and I sort of connected, Craig, Damon and I, and in 2009, we actually made a crocodile film. Well, we made that film in the Okavango with Didier and Warro, who was my Jacques Cousteau's cameraman and my mentor, called Into the Dragon's Lair. So that was distributed on Discovery Channel. So we worked on that, and we became friends through that process. We then subsequently made two more films in the kind of, one was Touching the Dragon, and the other one was Into the Dragon's Feast. So we worked together for 4 or 5 years making these films. I was in the films, narrating the films, and obviously doing some of the filming. And then Craig and Damon were directing and shooting. And when Craig refers to, in the film, he refers to that thing where he got completely burnt out. It was basically doing those films and that process of that, where he, developed that adrenal fatigue. So in between all of that, I was very much developing my career as a wildlife cinematographer for the BBC. And in 2015, obviously Blue Planet 2 was on the cards, and stories are everything. So I actually approached Craig and Blue Planet 2 were keen to do a story in the Kelp Forest. And I said, look, this is what we're thinking of. Have you got anything that you think we could shoot? And he was like, well, there's this incredible behavior that I've come across. And basically he described the whole armoring octopus to me. So anyway, we pitched that to Blue Planet. We got a commission. And because I knew it would be difficult, working in Cape Town's tricky because of the swell conditions and things, we kind of agreed to do it over a 2-year period and do quite a bit more work than they had budget to pay us. So it was a wonderful period of really exploring the Kelp Forest with Craig, learning how to film these octopus. And during that period, he developed that relationship with that particular octopus. So, I was only there for periods of time. I think we ended up doing about 50 or 60 days together in the Kelp Forest over the 2-year period. But then I'd go off somewhere else to shoot, and he would carry on because he was going every single day. And then I think with with the success of that, you know, that sequence in Blue Planet 2 really went down well. It's been described now as an iconic kind of, you know, BBC sequence. And I think Craig was starting to feel a lot better. And the idea of the film for My Octopus Teacher kind of just emerged, you know, after that whole experience. And he then asked me to shoot additional material. And we were working together anyway to build up an archive of material. So it was very much a kind of an emergent process whereby the film, you know, came about, and drawing on that archive, because as you'll see, it draws on footage from a long period of time.
Yeah, I think if I in the footage that I watched, because is that it took if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, about 10 years in the making. Is that correct to put?
Yeah, I think the I mean, obviously the footage was shot because the octopus only lives for a year. So the bulk of the footage was shot over a kind of a 1-year period. But what Craig's referring to is that it took him, you know, 4 or 5 years of going into the kelp forest to really start to understand it. And then we had that incredible time with the octopus. And then, of course, it takes 3-4 years to actually edit the whole thing. You do shoot some additional bits and pieces. You've got to compose the music. You've got to do all the editing. And yeah, so in all, you know, you're looking at about a 10-year period in terms of when Craig started going into the water, and then probably like a 5-year period from the time we shot that material, first started shooting the material.
Yeah, no, and it's amazing, and what it has is it's received, as we all know, you know, worldwide success, and it's now been nominated for 8 nominations at the Jackson Wild Media Awards, and people describe this as the Oscars of natural films. I mean, this is something that you guys must be seriously proud of.
Yeah, it's extremely rewarding when, you know, something that you put a lot of time and energy into is so beautifully received and touches so many people. I mean, I watched it because I was obviously involved in it, but I stayed away from the final processes, and I watched it with my daughters and my partner, and you know, I mean, we were all in tears, and it's you know, I've had that feedback from a lot of friends that people really connected with it, and not just adults, but also, you know, youngsters. So I think it really is a film for our time. You know, it speaks about, and coming out of the whole Corona sort of context, it really is and what's interesting, it's been described by critics as a political film, as a feminist film. And in many ways it is, because what it's really saying is that we have to fundamentally rethink our relationship with nature. We are not outside of nature. We are we are in nature. So I'm very delighted with, you know, the impact that it's having. And yeah, it's, you know, it was a huge team effort, and it's just wonderful to have been a part of something and it's a hit. I mean, the bottom line is it's a wonderful film, and it's also a global hit, which is fantastic.
Oh, and it is. It's been an absolute phenomenon. As you say, it's a worldwide success. If you watch any form of social media platform today, you know, the clips coming up regularly. Have you watched this? Have you watched this documentary? Have you watched this documentary? And it is incredible. And as I said earlier, your role in the whole thing is you director of photography for Octopus Teacher.
Yeah, I think, I mean, clearly it was very much a team effort. You know, I didn't shoot all the material underwater. Craig shot a lot of material. Pippa, the director, shot material, and then there was all the topside material. But yeah, I think Craig gave me the credit because we'd worked together a lot, and we had explored, you know, the different ways of working. And one of the things we did was we shot, you know, because we were using so many small cameras as well, I shot with my camera in a more like reportage-y way to make sure that all of those things would sync together. But I think what's wonderful is that, you know, when the film of craft making is working, when you're just so enraptured, you're not noticing, you know, you're not actually noticing small things. You're completely absorbed in the story. And I think that that very much, you know, goes to the skill of the editors. And in fact, the editor, I can't remember her name, but I think she, you know, she's a Hollywood editor. So she's worked on massive, big productions, and she was phenomenal, you know. So it's a huge team effort making a film like that.
Yeah, I watched that the other day. She had like a nickname, if I can remember. I think but just on that, if these awards, the Jackson Wild Media Awards, they're going to be announced at the end of this month. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we actually there's another one. There's the Earth X Awards, which is actually a conservation award, which my Octopus Teacher won best of.
Which you won that
best of show.
You won that.
That's it. So that one there, that Earth X, that is an extremely prestigious film. I mean, we were up against films by Ron Howard, James Cameron, and that film our film outright won the award for 2020. So and then also there's the Panda Awards, which is the British Oscars. So we're up for best cinematography, best film. So, you know, awards are wonderful. They're sometimes a bit random in terms of you know, how it all, but just to be nominated is fantastic. And yeah, we'll see. You know, pity we can't go to them, but yeah. And also, what's unfortunate,
they're held, obviously held where they're going to be held this year.
Well, the Panda Awards are held in Bristol, which is kind of like the Hollywood of wildlife filmmaking to a degree. Jackson Hole is in Wyoming in America. And yeah, they'll all be virtual this year, you know, online. Yeah,
well, Roger, I'm sure you're going to get the whole of South Africa rooting for you guys for those awards, because, you know, as you said, it's been an absolute phenomenon. It's taken, I think, Netflix by storm, and yeah, I think we're all going to be rooting for you, and good luck. And you know, as I said, probably end of September, these awards and will be announced. So we're all holding thumbs and rooting for you.
Thank you very much.
Roger, just one more thing currently. You know, we spoke again off air that you've done a lot of work during lockdown at home. You're busy with the Blue Planet 3 series for the BBC and the Ocean series for Netflix. Is that what you're currently involved in at the moment? And what future projects do you have in line?
Yeah, I've been working on, it's actually Planet Earth 3. So that's the next one. And then I'm looking to work on a big ocean series for Netflix for the next 2 years. And we'll just have to see. You know, I think Corona's not going away quickly. So again, it might be that I end up focusing more on local stories for that series in the beginning of the year as much as possible. But that's really the plan. So these series, normally you shoot on them for about 2 years. So a big series normally is a year of pre-production, 2 years of shooting, and then a year of actual post-production and the creation of the film. So yeah, it's exciting, but it's quite sobering, because I'm also, you know, if you think about it, you know, just sort of getting into the stride. But I mean, I've probably got about 5 or 6 big series left. So I'm just really determined to absolutely make the most of it. And, you know, we're at such a critical time with global warming and all these issues. So yeah, I think the next sort of 20 years are quite definitive in terms of how we as a global community respond to these threats.
Oh, well, yeah, that's great. And I mean, and good luck, as I said, you know, to you. I've learned a lot about Old Boys, and as I said, you know, had I not known, I wouldn't have known that you were, I mean, obviously we go back years, you know, in Durban, and had I not known, I wouldn't have known you were involved in this film, this documentary in particular, and all the other exciting work that you've done. And it's been really great to catch up with you today. Keep up the good work, and please tell the team that we, you know, all the DHS Old Boys, and as I said, the whole of South Africa are all behind you with these awards, and good luck, and we're looking forward to some exciting news at the end of September. Roger, been great catching up. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks so much. And then the one last thing I didn't say is I'm not sure if you've seen the homage to my Octopus Teacher, my creepy teacher.
No, I haven't.
It's brilliant. It's basically a Cape Town guy who's made this like homage to the film, and I mean he copied our style, and it's fantastic. And that's when you know when people start making those kind of things that film is really becoming part of like the culture. So yeah, check it out if you haven't seen it.
Will do. Thanks, Raj. Great to catch up. Huh?